Guys, welcome back to another PowerShell tutorial. This is Matt, and we're going to be discussing for loops today. So a for loop is basically it checks a condition, and then if that condition isn't true, it'll run through until that condition is true. So we'll get started. I'm going to be using Notepad++, but you can use any text editor you like. You can also use PowerShell ISE if you want. So the first thing we'll start off with is starting a for loop. So for any for loop, you do for, and then you make parentheses. Now inside these parentheses is what the for loop is going to be checking on. So we're going to create a variable called $I, or I, and $sign is for variable, and we're going to set it equal to 1. So right now, I equals 1. Then we're going to use a semicolon. Now with the semicolon, it basically, it's like, kind of like in code, if you have, do this, and then do this. Well, you can do the same thing on one line, so that instead of executing each line at a time, you can actually put a semicolon, and now it'll do this, and then it acts like a new line, and then it'll do this. So that's the reason we're using that. So we'll go back in here, and we'll say check against I, and if it's less than or equal to 9, basically run this loop, and after that we'll increment I by one value. So to I equals 1, I equals 2, now I equals 3, and then we'll create a script block with our squiggly brackets. And what we'll do, just to make sure it's working right, for testing purposes, we'll just do write output $I. So now it'll write I on the screen each time, the value of I. So if we open PowerShell, paste our code in, let's set it to so you can see it a little better. Paste it in here. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 9. So it ran each time until it hit less than or equal to 9. So, if you set this value to, 100, when you ran it, it would go to 100. It's pretty cool. Some people wonder why you would do this, so we'll make a little script to understand why we would do something like this. So let's say, for instance, you want to bulk create like test accounts or anything, but we'll use test accounts in this example. So let's say you want to create test accounts, and instead of creating like a test account 1, then go back and create a test account 2, or if you're using 0, 1, 0, 2, this could be a great way to automate that. So first thing you can do is we can create a variable for our account name. So we'll just make account name space equals space and quotes. Right now it's empty. We'll add something in there later. And then we'll make another number, or another variable called, number of accounts. And we'll set that to nothing for right now. Now, for number of accounts, we'll use this variable right here. So if we set it, let's say we'll set it to 9, and then we'll change this number of 100 to $number of accounts. So now this should run through 9 times. There it goes. So now, let's say our account name is going to be test underscore. So now we can say, what you want to do is you can use quotes, since we're going to be using a string value, and then we'll just do dollar and then account name, and then to concatenate these two, since they're both variables, you put dollar parentheses around the first one. So now if we run this, test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 9, which is pretty cool. So I know we're just displaying the names right now, but if you were in an Active Directory environment, you could use the new ADUser commandlet, and it'll run new ADUser each time. Then you can do name dash name, And then instead of writing this to the screen, you could just put it in a variable. So you could just enter it down and just put, make a variable called US name or something like that. And then you can just do that here, US name. And then each time it would do new AD user, then user underscore 1 underscore 2 underscore 3. So that's one thing you could do every time. But let's say, you want to use zeros in your account name. Well, if you have an account name, so for instance, test underscore 001, well, what happens when you get to 9? It'll go test underscore 10. When you get to 10, it'll look like that. Well, you don't want that to happen. You want it to remove a 0. And then same with 100. When it gets to 100, you don't want it to look like that. You want it to remove the next 0. So you can do this by using if statements. So we can do that real fast, just so you can understand a little bit about if statements as well. So we'll create our first if statement. So if $I is less than or equal to 9, and then we'll add, since this is a string, we can add our zeros in here. So there we go. And then don't forget, you want to put your brackets for your if statement. So we'll add our brackets around our if statement. So it runs this code in our script block. So now it says if I is less than or equal to 9, write this output. And then we can do another one. If $I is less than or equal to, or is greater than or equal to 10, start doing this. We'll make a script block. What we'll do is we'll just copy this code, paste it here, backspace it 1, and then we'll remove a 0. So now to be 10, 11, 12. But since I is greater than 10, it'd work perfectly. But let's say when you get to $I is greater than 99, you paste that in there. So now to say 100, 101. So if you look at this, if I is greater than 99, it'll do this. But also, I is going to be greater than or equal to 10. So it's going to run this code and then run this code. So then you're going to have duplicate accounts. So you're going to need an AND in here. So if I is greater than 10, sorry, you can do greater than 9. And $I is less than or equal to 99. So now once it gets above 100, it won't run this code. So let's change our account number. We'll change it to 101. And then we'll copy this. We'll clear our PowerShell screen. We'll paste this in. And there we go. No duplicate accounts. It's all in order. But just to show you, kind of show you what I was talking about, let's say we remove this. Let's remove this, just so you can see what I was talking about. So now if we run this, see, it's running the first one, and then it runs the second one, then it runs the first one, and then it runs the second one. So that's why we needed our AND statement in there. So now you can just, change, instead of write output, you can just change it to new AD user. And then, if someone wants a new account name or a new certain type of account, like we'll use new person. You don't need an underscore, you can use just nothing at all. Paste it into PowerShell. Let's see. Copy it again. paste it back into PowerShell. Boom. So there's a explanation on for loops. If you have any questions or anything, or like to see anything else, just comment below. And thank you for viewing.